Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Tip Tuesday. I hope that you're all having a lovely start to your week on this really incredible fall day. We've been talking a lot about self-care and self-care as a means of really attending to our own needs and our own health, and an act of self-care being understanding what our foundation and our baseline is for our health. And a lot of times when people are talking about self-care, they bring into the conversation around pieces related to lifestyle factors. So these may be things like I want to move my body every day, or I want to eat really nourishing food, or I'm going to focus on getting good sleep and doing activities or practices that can support those aspects. And I guess today what I want to talk about is backing it up a sort of step further, to look at why we're doing this and what aspects of our being does this actually support, and how. And what I have learned over time is that within our bodies we have this really intricate web of connection, really, that connect all aspects of our being, from our brain essentially to every cell within us. And there's so much there in terms of electromagnetic fields and areas of our body that have a higher amount of electromagnetic field, a greater volume, if you will, like our hearts. And there's research to support all of this, and there's research to support the connection actually that my electromagnetic field can make to yours, which is really neat, and that's energetics and quantum physics and a whole nother conversation. But what I want to do is kind of back up, and in this idea of that connection, that web within our entire being, look at our nervous system. And a lot of times when we think about the nervous system, we may think about neurological conditions, things related to particularly our brains, our spinal cords, and the neurons that run in between. So perhaps pathologies or conditions like MS or stroke, or something like Bell's palsy maybe. And these are dysfunction and conditions within the nervous system, within our neurological programming and biology. But our nervous system is much, much broader than that. It really is the web of connection between every cell in our body. It is our brain from our command center telling every cell in our body what to do. And that runs through the foundations of the nervous system. And there's different components of the nervous system. If we look at sort of a branching out, on the one side we'll have our central nervous system, and our central nervous system is everything centered to the body. So that is our brain and our spinal cord, and that's our central nervous system. And then on the other side we have our peripheral nervous system, and our peripheral nervous system is responsible for relaying messages to and from the outside to our central nervous system, and vice versa. Yeah. So there are pathways that go from our spinal cord, out to the muscles in my arm that tell the muscles in my arm to contract when I want to reach and pick something up, and kick a ball, and everything that we do in our bodies. And so that's our peripheral nervous system. And within our peripheral nervous system, we can divide that even further into our motor system and our sensory system. Our sensory system is, as you guessed it, taking information in through our senses. So our five senses bringing in information from the periphery, from the outside in. And then our motor system is around muscle contraction and sending signals from the inside out. So that example of reaching and picking something up. And it's important to remember that our motor system, our motor nerves, control more than just our muscles. And when I say muscles, I'm thinking specifically of what are called skeletal muscles, which are the muscles that are voluntary, that we can contract. All of our organs are muscle. They're smooth muscle, which means that we don't have the ability to contract them voluntarily. So they're involuntary muscles. And within that involuntary system, we have a division of our nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is essentially responsible for everything that we don't have to think about controlling. Things like our organ function, our heart's beating, our breathing, where in our body our blood is flowing, the size of our pupils, if they're dilating or they're constricting, if we are digesting food right now, if our immune system is functioning optimally. These are all aspects of our autonomic nervous system. And to break it down even further, within our autonomic nervous system, we have what's called our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. And this is where we really want to hone in on, because our sympathetic nervous system is, you may know it as our fight or flight system. Our parasympathetic nervous system is also sometimes known as our rest and digest system. And what this really relates to in everyday function is our ability to move between activation and rest. And activation is a good thing. We want to be activated, we want to be alert, we want to be doing things and having motivation and function and ability to do things. But what happens is our sympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive sometimes. And that's because our sympathetic nervous system is essentially responsible and the foundation of our stress response. And one thing, when we start to talk about stress, I think it's really, really important to differentiate between the different types of stressors. Yeah, stress is not bad. The definition of stress, as it was originally written by a scientist who's Canadian actually, named Hans Selye, I believe in 1936, the definition was related to, and I'm not going to get it word for word, but it was essentially related to a shift that our body makes based on increased demand. It's pretty mundane, right? But nowadays, we have this real emotional charge around the concept of stress, and for a good reason to some extent, right? From an evolutionary perspective, our stress response was really developed as a mechanism of survival. It was to deal with danger so that we could survive as a species. So coming in contact with, predators or famine, as an example. A lot of these old day stressors are not relevant to us anymore. And the amount of stress that we have now as a society is just blown entirely beyond the scope of what our stress response was actually designed for. And as a result, for many people, we get stuck in this fight or flight system. We have a majority of our time spent there, and that can create havoc in our bodies over time, because we're not meant to live over there. We're meant to go there and return back, and then go to a place of rest and then come back. But the idea is that we need to be continually shifting between stress, neutral, rest, neutral, back and forth, back and forth. And that is not, I don't want to say it's not possible. It's challenging for most people given the scope to which we live our lives. And that means all sorts of stressors. Yeah, that means physical stressors. So how we choose to move our bodies, how we choose not to move our bodies, what we put into our bodies in terms of nutrition. Food is fuel. What we put into our bodies or on our bodies in terms of, let's say, personal care products that can have harmful ingredients that our bodies need to detoxify and de-stress from. Environmental contaminants, things that end up in our air and our food sources, things like the coating on receipt paper, as an example, which is coated in BPA, which is harmful for our bodies. We are exposed to all sorts of physical stressors. We're also exposed to all sorts of psychological stressors. The demands on people in society now are far, far, far greater than what our stress response was designed for. The demands are that we will always do more, we will take on more, that the to-do list can be this long, that we will care for, all of the people around us alone because yes, we can do it. We weren't designed to. Our bodies actually were not designed to. We also are inundated with information all the time. If you think about, even when I was a kid, there was the 5 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news, and a newspaper that came in the morning. That's where you got your news. Nowadays, every news station is a 24-hour news station. You can get every piece of news on your phone at any moment. We have emails dinging, to-do lists reminding us. We have Instagram buzzing and Facebook telling us this. And statistics show us that most people respond to a ding on their phone within 6 seconds. Just let that sink in for a second. 6 seconds. Doesn't mean you've responded to that email, but you have seen it. Which means our phone is always within arm's reach. Yeah? And that constantly being inundated with information is stressful for our body's filtering system. If you're reaching for your phone before you even turn the light on in the morning, you are instantly moving your body into a stress response. And so, all of this to say, the demands of our lives have really started to exceed the supply that our physiology can provide. And what does that mean overall? What it means is that we end up experiencing symptoms related to an ongoing, prolonged, heightened stress response. Yeah, this is the impact mostly of cortisol in our body. Again, stress is not bad, cortisol is not bad, but it needs to be within limits. And so we need to start to find tools and ways to fluctuate between rest and stress to support a healthful nervous system. So we will continue this conversation each week and start to examine the things that we can do. What I would first encourage you to do is start to look at your day and look at what is considered a stressor and what is considered relaxation time. Start to look at them, maybe put them into two lists side by side, and just look at the length of each. And that will probably give you a really good starting point to examine what we might be able to shift and adapt, okay? So I hope that this was helpful information for you in terms of starting to lay that foundation, our nervous system 101, and what does that mean in terms of our day-to-day functioning, and some of the practices that we can start to put into place is how our conversations will continue to evolve. So we'd love to hear from you, questions, commenting down below, and I look forward to connecting with all of you very soon. Take good care.